Here we are, guys, with another Christmas review for you. Today we're talking about A Charlie Brown Christmas, a CBS television special that was released on December 9th of 1965. 55 years ago. What really can I say about A Charlie Brown Christmas? I'm sure that everybody has talked about it, just like a lot of other movies that I've talked about, especially Home Alone, which I just reviewed. But The Peanuts is very close to me. I grew up reading the Charlie Brown comic strips, watching this special along with the other holiday specials and various other Peanuts specials, like This Is America Charlie Brown All-Stars, Lucy Must Be Traded Charlie Brown, the Peanuts movie that came out 5 years ago, and I have many Peanuts memorabilia, including this beautiful shirt right here with Snoopy and Woodstock going at their regular shenanigans. And you could talk about all kinds of Christmas movies that have come and gone over the years, like Wonderful Life, Home Alone, Christmas Story, Die Hard, whether you think it is a Christmas movie or not, or Miracle on 34th Street, to name a few, or The Polar Express, which I reviewed last year. But for me, this is the staple. Every Christmas season, A Charlie Brown Christmas is a must-watch. I can't remember the first time I watched this, but ever since I was a young boy, I have loved this special, and I will continue to sing its praises to my grave. It's really easy to look at this special as a nice family Christmas special that you could watch every year, but if you read up on the production, there was a lot of stuff going against it, and considering the time period that it came out in, it was very groundbreaking in many ways. About 15 years prior, in 1950, Charles Schulz, the original creator for the Peanuts, began writing the comic strips. And then by the time the 1960s came around, the Peanuts was a huge phenomenon, not just in America, but all over the world. And TV executives were thrown pitches for bringing Charlie Brown into animation form, but after reading the strips, nobody was interested in doing it because they thought that the kids talked too much like adults and not like kids, and that they were too mean to Charlie Brown. But in 1961, the first time the Peanuts were ever used in animation form was by the Ford Motor Company, who used the characters in their Falcon commercials.
And you can now select from two engines, the regular Falcon engine, famous for mileage, and the new, more powerful Falcon 170 Special.
You get a choice of engines?
That's right.
You have to admire the generosity.
Because of those commercials, a lot of buzz and hype and interest was created in the Peanuts being animated for television and feature film. And Lee Mendelson, who was a television producer who knew Charles Schulz, was talking with the television executives, and they suggested, have you ever thought of doing a Christmas show? And he said, sure. All right, here's an outline. We need this by a certain time. And then he called up Charles Schulz, or Sparky as they called him, saying, hey, I think I just sold a Charlie Brown Christmas. What's that? It's something that you, Bill, and I have got to cook up tomorrow. Now, according to Lee Mendelson, he said this in interviews. There was a long pause over the phone, Lee held his breath, and then all of a sudden Sparky said, okay, come on up, we can do it. Charles Schulz had all the confidence in the world. As I'll explain in this review, nothing was going to stop him from creating the vision that he wanted to make. As I said, this special was very groundbreaking because it actually crossed a lot of barriers that weren't exactly written in stone, but weren't exactly tried at the time. Like, they had young kids voice the characters, and before, adults would voice kids and various other animated characters. And the music by Vince Guaraldi was a small jazz combo and not necessarily an orchestral and choir-like assembly. And it dares to question the commercialization of Christmas by also throwing in the scene where Linus recites the Book of Luke, giving a really poignant message of what Christmas is really about. And we'll talk about that scene later, but Charles Schulz was actually the one who pushed for that scene to be included in the special. And Bill Melendez said, whoa, hold on a minute. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. Talking about religion is a little too much. And it's surprising that even back then in the 60s, it was very taboo to talk about it, just like it is today. But Charles Schulz responded saying, hey, if we don't do it, who else will? And after a long pause, everybody in the room said, he's right. So with that and all the other stuff that they used, they took quite a bit of a chance with this one. And thankfully, it all paid off. But the plot of this special, Christmas is right around the corner, everybody's in a Christmas spirit except for Charlie Brown, who voices to Linus in the opening that, you know, Linus, Christmas is coming, but I'm not feeling happy. Charlie Brown, you're the only person I know who could take a wonderful season like Christmas and turn it into a problem. Of all the Charlie Browns in the world, you're the Charlie Browniest. So throughout this special, Charlie Brown's struggling to figure out what exactly is the meaning of Christmas. And it's so spot on. And especially as an adult, it's so easy to relate to what he's feeling. Because as a kid, when I first watched this, I couldn't really grasp why Charlie Brown would get so depressed. I would always think, why? It's Christmas. It's fun. You're going to get presents. You're going to spend time with family. What's there to be sad about? But now as an adult, it all makes sense because all the craziness with the lights and the music and going out to buy presents and getting food for the family and the friends and all that stuff, all the noise and all the craziness that comes with the holidays, the true meaning of the holiday gets drowned out so easily. And he later ends up visiting Lucy at her psychiatric desk, so to speak, psychiatrist Lucy. So she questions, hey, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of responsibility? If you are, you have hypengiophobia. I don't think that's quite it. Maybe you have thalassophobia. This is fear of the ocean. Or how about pantophobia?
What's pantophobia? The fear of everything. That's it!
That always makes me laugh. But then Lucy proposes the idea that, hey, how would you like to be the director of our Christmas play? Charlie Brown is so thrilled that he takes up the offer. But then as he takes on the director's chair, he continues to encounter so many obstacles that makes him continue to question like, oh, come on, there has to be something better than this. Like, everybody's so swallowed up by the craziness. Like when he sees Snoopy decorating his doghouse, or even when his sister has him write a letter to Santa and then she ends up asking for money instead.
How about 10s and 20s? 10s and 20s? Oh, even my baby sister.
And then as he takes on the director's chair, he tries to establish his authority as the director, but none of the kids are listening to him. They're too busy dancing to the music that they're playing, and it has arguably one of the most iconic pieces of music that's ever been put into pop culture, the Linus and Lucy theme, which was written by Vince Guaraldi himself. That piece of music, along with the other songs on the soundtrack for the special, it's so synonymous with Charlie Brown now that when you hear that music, you automatically think of the Peanuts. It's impossible not to. But that Linus and Lucy theme has become so iconic, and it instantly became the signature tune for the Peanut specials that came out afterward. Radio stations will still play that piece of music whenever December comes around. But as I mentioned with the That's It scene with Charlie Brown, there's so many great moments in here. Just like with Home Alone. I find myself quoting them sometimes that it's really good stuff. It shows you just how clever the writers were, and the kids might not get it when they watch it, but when you watch it as an adult, it makes it even better. Like when Lucy tries to get Linus to memorize his lines. Give me one good reason why I should memorize this.
I'll give you 5 good reasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are good reasons.
Christmas is not only getting too commercial, it's getting too dangerous. And one of the funniest scenes is when Snoopy has to be the animals in the play, but he ends up teasing Lucy and gets on top of her head and hangs his head like a vulture. No, no, no! You've got to take direction! You've got to have discipline! I oughta slug you.
Ugh! I've been kissed by a dog! I have dog germs! Get hot water! Get some disinfectant! Get some iodine!
If there's any favorite character I have in all of the Peanuts properties, it's gotta be Snoopy. You know why? Because he is the only character, besides maybe Schroeder or Linus, that will give Lucy the grief that she deserves, considering just how mean she is to everybody, including Charlie Brown. Somebody seriously needs to slap her upside the head. She is so cruel. One of the most meanest characters that I've ever seen in any type of fiction. Eventually, Charlie Brown and Linus decide to go out to get a Christmas tree, thinking that it would actually help the mood a little bit and get everybody in focus. So they go out to this Christmas tree farm, where Charlie Brown sees this very worn-down Christmas tree with barely any needles on it. Despite the skepticism from Linus, Charlie Brown decides to take the tree back to the play. And then we get to one of my other favorite parts, where Lucy is pestering Schroeder while he's playing the piano. Everyone talks about how great Beethoven was. Beethoven wasn't so great. What do you mean Beethoven wasn't so great?
How can you say someone is great who's never had his picture on bubblegum cards? Good grief.
And then there's the moment where she tries to get him to play Jingle Bells. And the first couple times, it seems like he's got it down, but she keeps saying, no, 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 Jingle Bells, deck them halls and all that stuff.
That's it!
The look on Schroeder's face, oh my god. Just a little sidebar here. If anyone knows the song The Reason by Hoobastank, whenever that opening piano piece comes in, dun, 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 my mom pointed it out to me that she always thinks of Schroeder doing that on the piano. And thanks for that, Mom, because now I can't unsee that anymore. But Charlie Brown comes back with the Christmas tree, and much to the chagrin of the rest of the gang, they are so furious and so upset with Charlie Brown. They verbally tear him down, and then they walk off the stage laughing. And Charlie Brown is so flustered with what has transpired that he screams out in frustration, "Does anybody know what Christmas is all about?" "Sure, Charlie Brown, I can tell you what Christmas is all about." And then we get the best scene in the special, where Linus recites the Book of Luke on stage.
A multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men.
Now, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine pointed out that when Linus says, "Fear not," he lets go of his security blanket. Basically, he's in the presence of God. He's letting go of all of his securities and trusting it to the Lord. But if you haven't noticed it, watch really closely. It is such a small moment that whenever I see it now, I get shivers all over my body. It's such a beautiful moment. And this scene I like in particular because I know that some people might not like this. They think it kind of is too preachy or that it's too heavy-handed in its message. I honestly never got that impression. I think it really drives the point home. Now, depending on who you are as a person and your own perspective, the holidays might mean something for you that the next person might not feel the same about. There's been tons of debates over the last thousands of years about Christmas and winter solstice and paganism and all that stuff, which I'm not going to get into that here because that's not what I do here. I would rather leave that to the scholars and philosophers who are experts in that area. But as far as my own personal thoughts, I think that this is a very crucial scene in the special because it shows you, despite all of the commercialization that comes with the holidays, what really comes down to is the birth of Jesus and the hope that he brings to the world, that he came to save the world from their sins. Now, I'm speaking from my own perspective as a Christian, and if any one of you feels different, that's totally fine. I respect that. What I'm trying to get at, though, is that I don't think you necessarily have to be a believer to appreciate this. The main message is still there, that there's more to Christmas than just the presents or the music or the food or the lights and all that other stuff. And there's been some debate about whether or not this scene should be cut out of the special whenever it's broadcasted or if it's on Apple TV. I think that would be a huge mistake because it would leave you go, well, what's Christmas really about then? I'm sure there's other things you could think of, but for this special, I think it's the right fit. And I don't really see how anybody could argue that this scene has to be cut out. And I hope to God, for future generations, that it's never removed. So Charlie Brown leaves with the tree, deciding to decorate on his own, stealing one of the ornaments from Snoopy's doghouse, but then it collapses under the weight of the ornament, and Charlie Brown leaves all depressed, going, "Everything I touch gets ruined." The rest of the gang, who overheard Linus's speech, are now feeling sorry for demeaning Charlie Brown and decide to follow after him. And then they see the tree and realize that, hey, you know what? It's actually not that bad. It just needs a little love, like Linus says. So they decorate it with Snoopy's Christmas lights, and it looks even better than it was before. Charlie Brown returns, and to his shock and delight, he sees the tree in all of its glory, and it ends with them singing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." So when they put it all together, the creative team showed it to the TV executives, and the executives hated it. But the creative team, including Charles Schultz, kept pestering the studio execs to get it on TV. And so they decided to go with it with the mindset of, all right, we're going to give it a try, but I'm telling you, it's not going to work. On December 9th of 1965, it broadcasted on CBS, viewed by 45% of those watching television that night. Following day, the reviews were over the top positive. Critics and audiences adored it. In the following year, it won a Peabody Award and an Emmy Award. And every year since then, it's broadcasted on ABC or CBS, or as of nowadays, it's shown on Apple TV. And people still list it as one of their favorites, if not their favorite, Christmas movie or special. As I said, it was a huge, huge groundbreaker, and with all the stuff that was going against it, it was one of those examples that sometimes when you take a chance, if you really commit to it and you make it right in execution, it all pays off. So in conclusion, A Charlie Brown Christmas Special is probably my favorite Christmas movie special of all time, next to The Polar Express. I watch it every year in December, and it never, ever gets old. I don't care if I'm 75 or 85 years old. I will watch this to my grave. Even when I go onto the other side, I'm still gonna watch it. It always takes me right back to that simpler time when I was a kid. So those are my thoughts on A Charlie Brown Christmas. Thank you guys so much for watching this. What are your thoughts on it? Do you love it, like it, think it's alright, or do you hate it? How can you hate Charlie Brown? Seriously, tell me. If you do, well, whatever the case is, comment below and tell me your thoughts. Hope you guys are having a safe and Merry Christmas, and I'll see you all very soon.